Everyone, we're going to call the February 3rd Board of Adjustment to order. First, let me announce all decisions of the board are considered final. If there's anyone aggrieved by the decision of this board, they may appeal to circuit court within 15 days of the board's decision. Also, no permits or license can be issued until that 15-day appeal period is expired and no appeal has been filed. For information regarding the board's decision or an appeal to circuit court, the Office of Land Use Administration will be your contact. As you come to the podium, we'll ask that you direct your questions to the board, not to someone else in the audience or to the staff, unless we ask a question where it's required. Also, there's a 5-minute limitation for speakers. If there's 4 as in favor of a motion or, a variance, and 4 in opposition as required for speakers. So if you got more than 4, pick your best 4 is what I'm trying to say. 5-minute limitation for speakers, and I would ask that you turn your electronic devices off or silent so we don't have a disturbance. If you have any handouts that have not been provided to staff, please give those to them now so that we don't have a disruption in the meeting. Okay, and as you come to the podium, you have to give us your name and address for the record. Okay, we'll start with roll. Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Coleman. Here. Mr. Metcalf. Here. Mr. Burrows. Here. Mr. Milling. Here. Mr. Golden. Here. And I'm William Guest. We have 7 members here. It takes 5 to affirm a motion. And we have a quorum, therefore we can proceed with the meeting. Mr. Anderson's here as our legal advisor. And we have 2 handouts, one from Long Attorneys and another one from the electronic system for the board to have available. And I guess you have some other handouts that are coming. Okay.
We do have handouts coming.
All right. Well,
These are not associated with the first
that's
application.
what I was getting ready to ask. Okay, application 6305, 4628 Channing Court. All right, sir, your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Spencer Toole. My address is 4628 Channing Court, Mobile.
Okay, and have you seen staff's recommendations?
I have, yes, sir.
Are you in agreement with those recommendations?
I am.
Okay, there appears to be a hardship associated with your request, and there are conditions for gutters and downspouts, full compliance with municipal codes and ordinances. All right, any questions of the board for the applicant regarding this application? Okay, we have none. Anyone in the audience in opposition to this application? All right, we have none for the record. Staff recommends approval subject to conditions as read. Any comments, questions? Chair entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right. Application 6306, 1950 Hunter Avenue. Good afternoon. Your name and address, please.
Flora Thompson, 1950 Hunter Avenue.
Okay, and have you read the staff's recommendations?
Yes, sir, I have.
Are you in agreement with those?
I am.
Okay. Appears to be in an older neighborhood, and the setback is kind of pre-established, I gather. And it's the usual customary requirements. All right, any questions of the board for the applicant? Anyone in the audience in favor or opposition to this application today? Okay, we have none. All right, staff recommends for approval, subject to the conditions as listed. Chair entertain a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Have a
Please,
motion?
let's make sure we make the motions adopting the findings of fact. Let's make sure we do that,
All right.
please.
Motion, please, if you will, modify your motion affirming findings of fact?
Yeah. So moved. According to
And do I have a
findings of fact,
second?
yes.
Second.
No second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Application 6307, 300 St. Louis Street.
And we do have handouts to hand out.
All right. While they're handing out things, do you want to give us your name and address, sir?
Jacob Nobles, 740 Museum Drive, Mobile 36608.
Okay.
Robert Martin Architecture.
So each of the boards should have a handout on it, so you can keep the board or, just take the handout if you'd like.
I'll pass them on for a moment. Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll proceed. Tell us about your application, please.
Well, we have 3 variances we're applying for here. I have my colleague up here so we can bounce things off each other.
Okay.
We have 3 variances. One is for a height limitation, overall height of the building. The other for an allowance of a gallery on the first floor, sorry. And the use of a masonry gallery instead of, I think what's allowed is a base, a column, and a capital or something like that, but we'd like to use masonry on our gallery.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Okay, there's a note in the staff's report that's recommended for holdover so that some things could be submitted.
Explain that.
Mr. Chairman, regarding the 3 variances that they've requested, they actually only need 2 of the 3 that they noted. The one for a gallery frontage is actually allowed in this downtown development district, so they don't have to get a gallery frontage variance. They have submitted additional information, and staff has identified that they will need additional variances. However, the board can consider their requests as presented for the height and for the column design, and then they can submit for the next meeting for the additional variances that would be required for this building.
So how significant are the other variances?
Essentially, the design of the gallery is not in compliance with the requirements in the ordinance, which essentially state that what they're proposing as masonry would have to be metal, and then it has to span across 80% of the building, which would be about this distance. And instead, they have areas where there are no galleries on the upper floors. So they would be applying to amend or request a variance from those requirements.
Okay. Any questions of the board for staff or for the applicants?
I have a question, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. In the staff report, I guess in y'all's explanation for the need for variance on the height restriction, it talks about economic restraints, and that's not, a reason that we can consider in granting a variance. So are there other reasons or hardships that you have? Are y'all going to speak to that, or are you?
Yes, we'd like to. We think our hardship is in relationship to how other people have been treated. We think our site's been treated unfairly. There are a number of sites along St. Louis Street and in close proximity to it that exceed 3 stories, as which I think the code allows. So we'd like to, have that considered.
Were they built prior to the current
I
code?
can't say that, but we do know that there's a future building that's on St. Louis Street that's, I don't know where it is in planning right now, if it's been permitted or not, but it's supposed to be 6 stories.
If I could.
Robert, are those, do you know?
Well, I think,
Your name and address, sir, as well.
Robert Moran, 601 St. Anthony. I think what Jacob's referring to is that the code allows taller buildings to the east, which is downtown. It steps down towards Jackson and to the west, and then it starts stepping back up to the west once you get into the warehouse district. And so we're in a special valley, it appears, that doesn't allow a taller building. And so a block away, you could get to 5, 6 stories, whatever, and right where we are, you can't, or we're not allowed to. And so we look at that as an unfair situation that our lot happens to be in.
And we don't really understand why is that case? Why is there a valley?
Have you asked the planning staff?
No, I have not.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, are there any additional questions for the applicant? Has this went through planning already? It kind of makes me wonder, did this application already go through planning?
The only part that needs to go through the planning commission is to create a legal lot from the property. They have met with the Consolidated Review Committee, and I believe they have had a pre-development meeting. So in order to build the building that they wish to build, they have to go through the variance process. And if you look at the map that you have behind you, the site is located in what's called a T5.1 district, which goes from this point down St. Louis Street to St. Joseph. Then we get into a T5.2, and then this darkest color is called T6, which has an unlimited height restriction. In the opposite direction, this orange color is the warehouse district, which has a 6-story height limit. And I believe the other building that is proposed is going to be in this district, so that it will not have to have a height variance. It is allowed by right. And then the T5 district is essentially all of this area. So all of this area would have a 3-story limit, with the exception of that portion that abuts Bienville Square here, or actually that's there.
Okay.
Bert, is my recollection when they did the downtown development code was that, at least from the presentations that I sat in on, was that it was supposed to be, I guess, a transition within areas that it was consistent with what current buildings were in those areas. So the ones that were further towards the river already had a number of high rises, whereas, this section didn't. Is that correct, or do you know if I'm making that up?
I believe that was probably part of the justification for putting it in that way, mapping the districts downtown. The consultant, Duane Plater-Zyberg, wanted to calibrate the requirements for downtown based on what existed, essentially, and kind of mimic what was there.
Do you know, as far as the future land use, map and plan, would it vary from what's currently there now at all?
I don't believe we have been considering any changes to the downtown portion of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? All right. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on behalf of this application in favor? Okay, if you'll come down, if you gentlemen will give them the opportunity. Good afternoon, your name and address.
Kelly Baker, 254 State Street. I'm a resident of downtown. And I would like to point out that we are very picky about what happens downtown. But Bob Isaacson has proved himself on St. Louis Street. And he's done beautiful work. He's the only developer down here that's building from the ground up, aside from the other 6-story one that's going in 2 blocks to the west. Also, the picture that map that was up there that showed the boundaries. If you're at that site and you look south 1 block, you've got the AT&T building, which is 7 stories high. So I don't think that it's going to look out of place. And I will also say that before I got up here to speak, I spoke with the people at St. Louis Lofts who surround that site just to make sure that they are not opposed, because they adjoin the property and it's very important how they feel, and they are not opposed. So I live maybe 2 blocks from there, and I'm not opposed. So actually, I support it. It's a beautiful plan, and what he's doing on all 4 corners right there is going to greatly enhance downtown. And you can see what he's done with the Cheese Cottage, the Majestic Brewery, etc. He does it right. He cares about downtown, and he's the only developer right now that's just, he's got his whole heart and soul into it. So I think we should definitely give him some serious consideration with the height. That's what I'm standing here for today, is the height variance.
The St. Louis Lofts,
Yeah.
how tall are they?
They are 2-story on the high part, but they're also very tall. So, how high? About 30, I believe. Yeah, 30 feet. So I'm not sure how high is the 5 stories going to be.
65, I think.
So, you know, and it's really going to be nice, a great addition. We need this. It's going to be beautiful to walk from our neighborhood to downtown and have that right there on the corner. It's just going to be fabulous. He's going to have a workout facility with a lap pool and a gym right next to St. Louis Lofts, so they can also participate in that. And the parking is behind, which is beautiful. It's going to have a restaurant on the corner. So anyway, I'm up here to say I support it.
Okay, thank you.
So I hope you guys will consider the height.
All right,
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience that has comments in favor of the application? Okay, anyone in opposition today? All right. Staff's initial recommendation was for a holdover, but we're, I guess, cleared to proceed with the understanding there'll be additional at a later date.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Mr. Millie, you, if I remember right, were part of the downtown development review and co-development. Do you have any additional information we ought to consider?
I mean, I concur with what Kelly said. I think Bob's done a fantastic job downtown and has shown a commitment to quality. And, you know, personally, I don't have an issue with the height as far as, you know, what's going on that corridor. If you look at the courthouse and some of the other areas, I do think it is, and, you know, in keeping with the aesthetic. I know that the intent of it was not to have a single-story building that then you turned around and had, you know, a 6 or 7-story building, and just you got to a point where you had, you know, a mismatch of kind of uses, so that the form-based code would bring more predictability to downtown. As one person's investing and developing, they would know, you know, what might happen next door, and it would protect that investment. And so my only concern is, you know, the application, you know, reason was an economic one, and we have been very strict and cannot make a decision based on that. And so I just think we have to be clear on what is the hardship, and that's, you know, that's what I struggle with is, you know, what is the hardship for this property outside of the stated one that it's economic, because we've turned a lot of people down based on that. So those are my comments.
Okay. Any further comments of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say I agree with Jeremy, and it just says plainly in the application about economics, and we're kind of painted in a corner there.
For some reason, I was thinking the downtown development, actually, economics was something that we could consider. Is that not true?
No, sir, no variance can be based simply strictly on economic hardship, but they can have other hardships. If they can explain other hardships, you can rely on that, even though they've said previously part of it's economic. If there's other hardships you can rely on, then you can grant a variance.
All right, sir, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a further statement if I could. I don't know if this applies as a hardship, but again, to the unfairness, like Kelly mentioned, the AT&T building, I think it's the Alabama Power building, one of those buildings that are in close proximity, those are tall buildings. So in terms of the visual, the landscape of the area, our building's going to be no less obstructive than any of the other buildings that are very close to us. It's not as if we're talking about we're in a desert here of all low buildings. I mean, it's really very close in terms of its size, you know, so I don't see how, the hardship, I guess, is just being treated unfairly.
Okay.
Can I follow up? And I hear what you're saying, and, you know, but I mean, we get applications all the time that, you know, one thing's happened in a certain area because those were areas that it was either allowed, you know. I guess, did y'all know at the time that there was a limit to 3 stories when you bought the property?
I can't speak to that. Sorry. I know.
You
I don't
can't
think we
speak
did
to
know.
that?
No. We just had this great design and thought, well, let's continue making it great.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, y'all have done a fantastic job. I mean, you've been, you know, responsible for a lion's share, I think, of the, you know, projects along that corridor that have been amazing. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to work you over. It's just being consistent, and just with the fact that the argument in the, you know, the document was something that, you know, we're strictly forbidden to make decisions on. I feel like, at least from my standpoint, you know, there's got to be something to hang your hat on that says, you know, because we've made a lot of other decisions with people based on that. So, you know, I guess, you know, and I don't know kind of if y'all, you know, what your time crunch is, or if there's a timeline. I don't know if, you know, if it makes sense holding this over 30 days and trying to, you know,
If that's an option,
kind of
we'd
work
like-
out, you know, what the hardship is. And I just know that, and I'm just speaking for myself, not the board, it's just trying to be comfortable and clear that we're not stepping down a path that is contradictory to what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, it definitely would have an impact on our schedule. We really have a tight schedule and like to get this thing underway, but it's very important for us to try to figure out how to get 5 stories. So I'd like, if we could get a hold of it, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, on page 5, talks about AT&T building, the Mater Bearing Supply Company, and then St. Louis Street Baptist Church, and then the 11-story tower on Ryan Park, all within kind of not too far from that area. So there are some other buildings, but some of these up here, I think, are much older buildings.
They are, but they're still there, and we can all see them as we're standing around there. So just adding this other one, will it really detract from the intersection? We don't think so. We think it actually will attract people to this intersection. That's really what we're trying to do here, is to make a really great intersection. We got Greer's on one side of the road, a great residential multi-use development. That's the most important thing, is that it's multi-use. Great eateries, the gym downstairs. We limit it, you know, it limits its impact, I think, on St. Louis Street and
Well, I
the
think everybody's in
blocks around it.
agreement that what you propose is a beautiful concept, but we also have to consider precedent, and, you know, kind
Just-
of opens it up every time we override some previous downtown development guideline.
For information, somebody, I guess one of them mentioned another project coming on St. Louis Street. That will be coming before you next month, I believe. Their attorney has contacted me about some variances. That's at the corner of, that's on St. Louis between Lawrence and Cedars. So 3 blocks away, 4 blocks away, next to on the west side of the Buick building is a 6-story, just like a 6-story mixed-use residential top floors and commercial on the bottom. So that's the one he was talking about, and it'll be before you next month. That district is allowed 6 stories their variances, I think, are going to be about transparency, the amount of glass, and then off-site parking.
All right. So these are the ones that are more difficult, because we're, obviously want to do what we can for the area and also serve our roles on this board and reviewing these specifically for hardship. All right, any other questions, comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I move for approval.
okay. I have a motion with a second for approval. Any conditions
Nope,
other than normal?
normal.
Okay,
If you're going to approve it, let's adopt findings of fact. Were there any on this application? If you would go back to the second application, on page 5, it lists those findings of fact. Something to that effect, if you could maybe tweak those a little bit, just using that magic language about variance requests not be contrary to the public interest. Special conditions appear to exist in the spirit of the chapter shall be observed and substantial justice done. We just need to adopt, we make a motion.
Approval
we
is
need to
based,
adopt
my
findings of
my
fact.
recommendation for approval is based upon those findings of facts previously stated in the second application.
Thank you.
okay, do I have a second? Okay, any further discussion?
So, real quick, what is the defined hardship?
I believe
Is it unfairness based on the surrounding?
that there's other facilities within the area that exceeded the height. Is that the case, Mr. Metcalf?
Well, I don't think it is contrary to the public interest.
Okay. Once again, any further questions, comments of the board? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, the motion carries. Did you?
Abstain.
All right, so that means the motion will fail without,
Abstain.
all right, motion fails.
What happened?
We only had 4 in favor, 2 in opposition, and Mr. Davis is abstaining.
Can I ask what the reason for that is?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay, motion fails. All right. We'll move on to the next application.
And the holdover wasn't an option.
Well,
Not now.
I would consider that. I would consider it if it's brought back up.
okay.
A motion to
Mr.
reconsider.
Anderson, are we able to proceed with a second motion for a holdover? I think we've had, if he rescinds his motion for approval, seems like we've had that once or twice.
Mr. Chairman, I abstain in voting on this motion. However, I was in limbo. If the board would consider reconsidering what Mr. Millings had offered earlier for the holdover, then I would be in favor of us doing that. And I'm just speaking from my posture with this vote.
And I also want to clarify, I'm not against the project. I just want to make sure that we've got solid footing on which we're making a decision. Because this comes up a lot. As I've stated a bunch, I mean, they do great work. I'm not against the project. I'm not against the height. It's just making sure that we've got solid footing.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, you got?
Based on the further discussion we've had and Mr. Davis's statement, I think it would be okay to, if Adam wanted to withdraw his motion and set it over to the next meeting, if that's what y'all want to do. Not what he wants to do, that's what y'all want to do.
All right, Mr. Metcalf, are you in?
Yes, I will withdraw my motion for approval and make the motion to hold over for 30 days.
And who was you made the second? Okay, so we have a motion to withdraw and then to hold it over for 30 days? Is that
Well,
correct?
we'll need two seconds on that, right? Because I've got, does my motion to withdraw need any action or just a motion, does that need to be?
We'll start with that.
Right, 'cause-
Okay,
so
I
there's
have the
two.
motion to withdraw.
You
I
second
have
that?
a second. All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, now, Mr. Metcalf?
Yeah, I have a motion to hold this over to the next meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to hold it over 30 days. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. You guys got 30 days, kind of work through the details.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, we're going to take a 5-minute recess at Mr. Metcalf's request.
Yes, I did, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're welcome, Mr. Chairman. Well, I was in the middle of this, I was in the middle. And I couldn't justify voting one way or the other. Not in favor, not in favor. Because you put sound reasoning on why you were doing it. And he felt like he was failed.
We can give them all to you.
There was an application where there was a number of reasons.
Yeah, there's others down there.
Unless it's
How you
a
feeling?
solid.
Good.
Appreciate
Good.
it. I felt like it was kind of weak where we were going. Somebody could come and say, well, you made an economic decision there, why don't you make here? Just seems like, I just felt like we need to be here.
I agree. And I appreciate you cautioning us on that too. You know what I mean? Did you get mine? I did. Yes, sir, I think it did.
Do you want these done? Do you want those? I didn't know they're all just
Starting to redevelop.
See you. Thanks.
Not results. That's good. Well, I'm sure he'll appreciate it. That's what we need. Not since I've been here. Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, I do. Yeah. Right. We're going to resume here in a minute. All right. We're going to reconvene our Board of Adjustment meeting. All members are now present. We're on application 5, which is 6309, 5752, 770 Airport Boulevard. Your name and address, sir?
Yep. My name is
No,
Mike.
excuse me, I apologize. I skipped. We were actually on 6308. This is 150 West I-60 Service Road. All right, please, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Your
Mike
name and
Serona, Mike Serona, 327 Black River Drive, Madisonville, Louisiana.
Nikhil Patel, 150 West I-65 Service Road, Mobile, Alabama, 36608.
Okay, well, you are in one of those difficult positions. Staff's recommended for denial, so you want to tell us why we ought to consider otherwise?
Yes. We want to take an existing hotel and repurpose it into, our initial plan was to repurpose it into an assisted living with memory care. Such a facility is allowed within the B3 zoning in the city of Mobile. Those were the plans we moved forward with. We went to the state to seek their approval for licensing. But within the last 2 years, they advised us that in the last 2 years, they had moved from a residential care facility classification to an institutional facility classification for such properties. So here we are with an assisted living facility would be allowed, but an independent living facility which allows residents to choose who provides the care they need in active daily living, what services they want. They can buy those services from outside providers. Let me go back one step. The building is made from wood construction, and as a result, the state won't license it. It would allow us to license memory care or assisted living on just the first floor, because it's one floor sprinkled. That's fine. We can do that in a wood building. But there are 3 stories. So we're looking to move it to independent living, offer pretty much the same thing, but just minus the care, food program, housekeeping program, social activity programs, amenity space, things that would allow residents to be involved in life with other people of the same age group, get involved in local activities, programs that are created. That's really the request we're asking, that a full-blown assisted living facility with memory care would be allowed, but because it's made from wood, we're not allowed to license it. This would not be licensed by the state. This would be a local city facility and operate under the guidelines of the city. The state will not license the facility purely because it's made from wood.
Okay. So based on now what they're proposing, does their variance request accurately reflect that?
Well, I think it's noted in the staff report that their original request, as he noted, the speaker noted, could not be followed through due to state building code requirements. And so the independent living is not allowed in a B3 district, whereas an assisted living facility would be allowed in a B3 district. So the last paragraph of the staff report notes that the difference between the two and that there seemed to be insufficient information provided to substantiate the hardship. Unless you want to consider the construction of the building being wood frame versus masonry.
Well, that would be a self-imposed hardship.
No, if they sprinkled the facility, would that change the,
Not for the state licensing. I think he said only the bottom floor could be licensed by the state.
so even if it's wood frame sprinkled, would not change it?
That's not something that I am qualified to talk about.
The building, after it's done, will be fully sprinkled, fully alarmed, according to city codes as they are now. The building, because it's being repurposed, would have to go through compliance with every code that has been
Bring it up
applied.
to current standards.
Absolutely, with everything.
Okay. Other questions on the board?
I have
Is
a
this-
question.
Go ahead.
Yes. I'm sorry, Doug. So the purpose of having a facility like this with a state license is in order that the state can oversee this type of facility and make sure that it's being run
Correct.
based on a certain set of standards, correct?
Yes.
And so if it doesn't have that state license, then who's monitoring that?
Then it would fall under the jurisdiction of the city of Mobile. This,
Is the city of Mobile equipped to do that?
The city would just inspect it for building and fire code compliance. If there were any complaints, the respective departments would go out and check the site for that.
any operational type inspection or oversight would be a civil matter. The state licensing would have some operational oversight, I believe, whereas in this situation, if approved, the city, like Burke said, all we would do is ensure that the building code is not being, or is being complied with, the actual operations and making sure that they are taking care of their occupants as they should be is not something the city can do.
That's what I guess is confusing to me, is because it seems like that the state licensure is in place for a reason, and that, you know, due to, I guess, the construction of it, it throws it into an area that nobody's really watching over that, which, I don't know, that seems like a...
So what we're proposing is really, we're going to build an assisted living facility. We just won't put the memory care component in because there are particular requirements for memory care. The only thing, according to the state, we cannot do is provide the full-blown assisted living services. If we do, then we would be contravening the licensing conditions of a state-licensed facility. So then they're telling us that we can only offer a certain number of services without overstepping the mark of full-blown assisted living. About a year ago, it would have been fine, but they've changed the codes recently, and now we're on the wrong side of what the current codes are for licensing.
This property is currently being used as a hotel, correctly?
Yes, sir.
And what is there anything keeping it from continuing to be used as a hotel?
No, sir.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If the state doesn't license it, who is controlling how it's going to be staffed?
We would have an operator, a management company that deals or runs properties.
Who are they going to be reporting to?
Well, they have to report to the owners. The owners would then be responsible for reporting to whichever agency we're responsible to. City of Mobile, the state.
Well,
so the state,
city
I think, covers
doesn't
complaints.
question how you're going to operate it, right?
So this is sort of like when you rent an apartment. So you're there, if you don't like the way it's being operated, you have the option to leave. So it's, once you reach a certain age, you can move into this facility and it'll provide meals and, you know,
I understand that part of it. What I'm asking you is, you're talking about people that have a specific need.
Correct.
And how are you going to satisfy that need? Who's going to regulate that is being operated in conjunction with that need?
We would operate it in a similar fashion to other assisted living properties.
Yeah, but those are registered, right? Assisted living departments are registered.
I understand.
So, but you're not going to be registered.
We will not be registered for a license. We will still operate it to the same standards as an assisted living facility.
I don't think so.
That is responsible under a license. So we're not offering any less. It's just that we cannot offer.
You're not being controlled, you're not regulated, right? In agency.
Yeah, he's acknowledged that.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Are either of you two the owner of the property?
Yes, sir. I
Okay,
am.
do you own other hotels
Yes, sir, I do.
in Mobile?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever done this before?
No, sir, I haven't, but I have done it outside of the state.
Okay, but you haven't done it here?
None here, no,
Okay.
sir.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions of the board? All right, anyone else in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition today? Okay, if you gentlemen will have a seat, let these individuals have their opportunity to provide comments. Good afternoon, your name and address, sir.
My name is Stephen Henry Crenshaw. I reside at 13051 Tanner Williams Road, 36608. But I'm representing Spring Hill Medical Center today, located at 3719 Dauphin Street. I'm a certified healthcare engineer with over 40 years' experience in healthcare facilities management. I'm very familiar with the Alabama Department of Health's rules for licensure and certification of healthcare facilities. The Department of, while the state does not recognize or licensed elderly housing facilities, which is technically what is being requested here. It does license and regulate assisted living facilities, as has been demonstrated. The physical and resident care requirements of an assisted living facility are mentioned several times in the variance application. But the facility is not seeking licensure and certification as an assisted living facility because of structural requirements. As an aside, I brought all 89 pages of the requirements for an assisted living center. So when it's indicated that it will operate just like an assisted living center, I would like to see a functional plan that says what's going to happen there, particularly in regard to quality of care, particularly memory care, as a son of a person that died from Alzheimer's. Food service, physical facilities, laundry, sanitation, housekeeping, fire and safety, very important, physical environment, administration, personnel, records, and reports. So, as the Board of Zoning Adjustments has stated, a licensed and regulated assisted living facility would meet the requirements of a B3 conformity. An unlicensed and unregulated elderly housing facility does not and will not meet the requirements to conform to B3 zoning. I'm here today to state Spring Hill Medical Center's agreement and support of the Board of Zoning Adjustments' current denial of the conformity of use variance for the property located at 150 West I-65 Service Road. Based on the current B3 Community Business District zoning and the charter permitted uses, the property is clearly non-conforming. The application and description of the intended use presents conflicting opinions, as the current facility conditions are not suitable for assisted living occupancy requirements, but the applicants state the facility will have as many amenities as an assisted living facility. Now, I believe that great thought and detail went into the development of the B3 Community Business District, and the zoning was designated with a particular purpose in mind for future and current development. The charter permitted uses did not then, and it does not now, include the provision of unregulated and unlicensed elderly housing. Spring Hill Medical Center feels that the integrity of the original B3 Community Business District zoning should be upheld, hence our support for your decision.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, sir. All right, I think we had two others. Good afternoon, your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Terry McKinney, 225 Spring Hill Memorial Place.
And I'm Bennett Long, and it's 2600 Spring Hill Memorial Place.
And I represent the Delaney's, and I speak on behalf of some of the adjacent property owners. Our biggest concern is the no regulation of this. And it appears to us from the information that we received that they're really trying to turn this into a single-room occupancy dwelling. They're saying the elderly, but we don't have any information on what the age is, et cetera. And in our limited time that we've researched these single-room occupancies, it has a tendency to draw the low income and the less than desirables. And we have all these medical facilities around, law offices, our offices. And in addition, in the immediate vicinity, you've got, probably 300 plus hotel rooms that pay a lodging tax. Now, I don't know by changing this to a SOR if that lodging tax goes away or what, but if we do get the clientele that has happened in other cities, it's going to greatly affect the hotels that are there, the others, such as the Holiday Inn and the Spring Hill Suites. And then if you go another couple blocks, you have another 400 or 500 hotel rooms. You've got another 5, one of them being a brand new refurbished La Quinta. We don't see where there's a hardship in the operation of a hotel, and we're against it.
Without rehashing,
Your name
as
and address.
Bennett Long, and it's 2600 Spring Hill Memorial Place, directly across the street from the facility that's under the application for a variance. Without going into and rehashing what Terry said, the main concern I have, as Mr. Milling pointed out, what hardship is there opposed? Why is a variance due to be granted in this situation other than an economic hardship? And I believe, reading through the lines, I think it's derived to increase profitability of the current facility. Now, I could be wrong, but that's a question I have posed.
Right. We also have on your letter.
Yeah, my brother wrote that.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
questions of the board for either of these individuals?
I've got one, Mr. Chairman. Terry, did y'all develop this park, or?
We actually did develop it. We sold that property to, now not the present owners, I can't remember, it was a group out of Chicago that developed a couple hotels in that area back in the early 80s.
Are there any restrictive covenants that would come into play at all
Not
on
that would
something like
apply to
this?
The restricted covenants had to do with setbacks and building.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, anyone else in the audience? All right, you gentlemen, you wanna restate your, request for the variance in response to the comments? Or I guess to address
Yeah.
their comments?
Mike Serona. With respect to the hotel comments made, we'd actually be taking rooms out of the hotel industry in that area, thus reducing the number of rooms in total. So it would boost demand for hotel rooms at other hotels. So it's not going to operate as a hotel. Age restriction, we can formulate a plan. We just need to understand that this is something that the city would support or provide the adjustment in the variance in order for us to put that full-blown plan together. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We will have an age-restricted community. It will provide the safety and care needed. Like I said, because it won't be an assisted living that's licensed, the care aspect of it would have to be provided by a third party that the residents would sign up with.
How long have you owned this property?
For 15 years.
And how long, is it currently in operation as a hotel? or what?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that was our hardship, that it was wood frame, and that we would be able to do an assisted living or memory care on the
No,
first
well,
floor.
my line of question is the hardship with continued use as it is
Yes, sir.
licensed is a hotel, right?
Yes, sir.
So what is the hardship with continuing to utilize it that way?
The hotel, there's too many hotel rooms on that exit and not enough occupancy to help sustain us moving forward.
All right. Any other questions of the board? Okay, I think that concludes our discussion or comments. All right. Staff's recommended for denial based on a series of reasons. One, it can be utilized as it's currently listed as a B3. And other than the economic hardship, I have not heard otherwise. Chair, entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move to deny the application based upon the findings of facts.
Okay, I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right. We'll move on to the next application. This will be 6309 5752, 770 Airport Boulevard. Your name and address, sir?
My name is Ken Gruskin, 294 Morris Avenue, Springfield, New Jersey.
A little ways from home.
Yeah.
All right. Have you seen the staff's recommendation?
Yes, I have.
Okay, subject to the conditions as listed.
Yes.
All right, and are you in agreement, or is the
Yes.
applicant's rep in agreement? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant? All right, anyone in the audience either in favor or opposition today? Okay, we have none for the record. Staff recommends for approval, subject to, and how do you put it, Mr. Anderson? Findings of fact. Findings of fact as listed in the staff's report. All right, Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve it based on the findings of fact as outlined by the staff.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
For waiting through the meeting. All right, Mr. Anderson, do we have anything on the books that is outstanding? We need to be aware of? Pending? Okay. How are we doing on minutes? Because as part of our guidelines, we're supposed to be covering minutes, and I know you're catching up, so I'm just asking.
Yeah, and Lisa Watkins has been working on minutes for the Tree Commission, which she no longer serves. And I imagine that she might also be trying to do work for Board of Adjustment and Planning Commission in addition to Ms. Shamika here.
All right,
So,
well, I, as you would expect, need to ask.
Yes.
And inquire
Yes,
on
sir.
occasion. All right, motion to adjourn? All right, thank you all for your service. Yep, you too. All right, we'll see you. I got half a dozen.